All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're going to break down a really powerful idea about the future of the internet. It's all about a massive shift from a shared ledger of value to a shared ledger of truth. And you know what? It all kicks off with one simple statement. And here it is. This sentence right here, that's our entire roadmap for this explainer. It's basically describing a two-step evolution, and we're going to unpack every single part of it to really understand the huge leap it's talking about for our digital world. So, to really get where we're headed, we've got to start with where we are right now. And that begins with the very first connection mentioned in our source text, connecting economies. This first piece of the puzzle, this really describes the foundation of Web3 as we know it today. The whole ability to connect economies using blockchain. But before we go any further, let's just make sure we're all on the same page with one key term. What does on-chain actually mean? Essentially, when something's on-chain, it just means it exists on a shared, transparent, and basically tamper-proof digital ledger. It's not controlled by one company or one bank. Nope, it's maintained by a whole distributed network. And putting currencies on chain? Well, that's what gave us decentralized finance, or DeFi. This was the first, huge application. It was the moment money became programmable, and you could access it from anywhere in the world without needing the traditional banks. And the impact was massive. I mean, suddenly anyone with an internet connection could get access to financial services. This created a whole parallel digital economy that was built on transparency and code, not on old-school centralized institutions. Okay, so this is where everything starts to shift. This is the big turning point. The first wave was all about value, all about connecting economies. But that was just the beginning. This question right here sets the stage for the next, and frankly, much bigger leap. So let's get to the next part of our source text and see how this whole thing builds. We're about to move from the world of finance into the world of information and logic. And this is where things get really interesting, really futuristic. See the huge change here? The word currencies gets swapped out for data, and economies gets replaced with intelligence. This isn't just a tiny adjustment. No way. It's a fundamental change in what we're putting on the blockchain. And here's the absolute core of the difference. On-chain currency is all about value. It's about tracking ownership. Who has what. But on-chain data? That's about information. It's about tracking truth, what is verifiably factually true. We're moving from just accounting to establishing facts. So you got to think way bigger than just storing some files. Imagine scientific data, your university degree, or even the rules that an AI model follows, all placed on-chain. It becomes this verifiable knowledge that anyone, or any program, can access and build on without having to trust some central company. Which brings us to the end of the line, the final part of that original quote. What does this future, this world built on connected intelligence actually look like? The source frames this whole thing as the inevitable next step. Just like DeFi explored the frontier of on-chain value, this new phase is all about exploring the frontier of on-chain intelligence. And this gets us to the main event, connected intelligence. Just picture a future where AIs and different apps aren't just stuck in their own little boxes. Imagine they can all pull from a shared, trusted pool of data and logic to make smarter decisions, and maybe even work together. And our source text even gives this new frontier a name, a hashtag you might start seeing around, #Codata. Just think of it as a cool shorthand for this whole concept of collaborative on-chain data. Okay, so let's pull all these pieces together and wrap this up. Why is this move from connected economies to connected intelligence such a big deal? What's the real takeaway from that short but super powerful statement we started with? The whole story, when you look at it, is a pretty clear four-step journey. We started by putting currencies on-chain, which connected our economies. The next logical step? Putting data on-chain to connect intelligence. So, if you remember one thing, let it be this. Blockchain started as a public ledger for tracking value. The next frontier is for it to become a public ledger for tracking truth, a global, shared database of verifiable facts that can be the foundation for a much smarter, more collaborative digital world. And really, that's the big question this whole idea leaves us with. That first step, connecting economies, it completely rewired global finance. So if this next step, connecting intelligence is as big of a leap as it seems, what parts of our world is it going to reshape? That right there is the next frontier.